Hi everyone, this is Jessica Garcia with Brainstorming Women. I'm happy to be here today with Jessi Thaller-Moran with Brooks Pierce in downtown Raleigh. You can see the beautiful skyline. Jessi, so nice to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us, you're an attorney, and tell us about the type of law you practice.
Sure. So I do business law, employment law, litigation, and Brooks Pierce does pretty much every flavor of business law. We've got offices in Greensboro, Raleigh, and Wilmington, and our attorneys do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have a few questions for you today. And the first one is about starting a business and the business structure, and how can you limit personal liability when starting a business?
Sure. And I'll start off with just a general statement that we're talking in generalities about North Carolina law, so this will be different depending on the state that you're in and your personal circumstances, but these are just some general things to think about. The default when you start a business, even if it's setting up a lemonade stand outside of your house, is that you're personally liable for anything that goes on with that business. And so a lot of people choose to create corporations or limited liability companies, things like that, to sort of limit their liability. But that does require a little bit of planning on the front end, because the different business structures have different tax implications. They have different liability implications. To use an example, if you form a corporation, it comes with a lot of built-in rules and requirements by nature of being a corporation. By contrast, if you form a limited liability company, those are more contract-based. Ooh, phone error. Those are more contract-based. So the joke is, with great power comes great responsibility. So you have to be a lot more careful on the front end to plan for contingencies and that sort of thing. And then with either case, you want to consult a professional and make sure your documents are all in order. One mistake we see some people make is forming a limited liability company or a corporation and then using that as sort of their personal checking account. And the risk you run there is you're not treating your separate legal entity like it's really separate. You're treating it like it's basically an extension of yourself, and that can put you in jeopardy later on.
So don't commingle. Open a separate account. Okay.
Exactly.
Very good. And so I'm hearing you talk about the different structures, but none of them sounded dependent on whether the number of members or co-owners. So one person could have a corporation, I guess.
Exactly.
Is what I'm getting at. Okay.
Exactly. And sometimes people will gravitate towards something like a corporation if they anticipate wanting to bring people in later on, rather than bringing them in as members or partners in their partnership or whatever that may be.
Okay, awesome. And that would apply to nonprofits as well, because I've had a few questions around that.
Yes. So nonprofit corporations have their own statute in North Carolina that has their own requirements. But nonprofits are primarily beneficial because they've got tax benefits. And so you want to make sure, like doubly, triply sure on the front end that you've got all of that buttoned up, because the last thing you want is to be representing yourself as a nonprofit corporation and have that challenged in some way down the road.
Okay. And so let's talk a bit about something that I covered in my past life a lot with business owners, and that was the importance of a succession plan or an exit strategy, because one of the things we would tell our clients is, even if you have a hot dog stand, if that partner of yours, if you have a partner and he dies, let's say, do you want to continue doing business with the widow? Or if there's a divorce or if there's a disagreement, it's important to have that up front. Do you agree?
I think that's very much in line with this general theme. I think of this whole presentation is thinking on the front end about where things could go and what you want to happen if certain events take place. And so I think there are sort of two parts to the succession planning you're talking about, right? One being succession, not secession. Those are two different words. One being to make sure you have the frank conversation with your co-business owners or managers up front. And the second being that you've got that documented in writing. And sometimes people choose to put that actually in the bylaws or in the operating agreement. But at the very least, you need to make sure that there's an understanding and that stays up to date. If you have a sibling or a spouse or a child who comes into the business and is just casually involved, 10 years later, that sibling or spouse or child might feel like they are an owner in the business. And so making sure that you're reevaluating that as the business evolves, I think, is really important.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's talk about the professionals that you bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, an attorney, but let's talk about the importance of other professionals that you recommend.
Sure. So I think tax professionals are always good to consult with on the front end. I think when it comes to attorneys, there are a lot of different flavors of attorneys that could be helpful. You want to probably talk to someone who can help you get your governing document set up correctly. You may want to talk to someone who does employment law to talk about how to properly manage your person who comes in to manage your website.
Yes, wanted to talk about that actually. Yes, excellent.
And then I think the only other point that I want to emphasize is when it comes to signing contracts for your company, just keep in mind that whoever's handing you the contract, like let's say it's the party you're contracting with, they've contracted that document to protect themselves. And so to the extent that you can have someone, even if you just have a lawyer that you call when you have one-off questions, you don't have to consult with them regularly, but send that to someone who has an eye for that stuff and say, where are the loopholes that I'm missing that I need to be able to protect myself? I think any of those professionals can help you do things correctly on the front end, and by extension, legitimize your business for when you're seeking funding down the road or, renting a space for your business. The more you can show you've taken steps on the front end, I think the more likely you are to find people who are willing to partner with you down the road.
I also see those experts as being on your side of the table when negotiating or when doing something with your business. I think it's important to have folks on your side.
Yeah.
Okay. And something that you touched on was employees and employee structure and 1099 employees and whether they're employees or not. And I don't know if that touches more on HR law, but any thoughts around that?
Sure. So those have legal implications and tax implications. But one mistake that some people make is thinking that, I'm a startup, I have no money. They know I have no money. I buy them a round of beers once a week and everybody's happy. The Fair Labor Standards Act, just to use that as an example, can apply to individual employees who are in interstate commerce. So if you're selling t-shirts out of your basement and you have someone who comes in twice a week to manage those sales, technically the fact that they're helping you ship that t-shirt into Virginia means that they're covered by Fair Labor Standards Act and need minimum wage. And then the same can be said for independent contractor status, which is something that small companies sometimes mess up and big companies sometimes mess up. That's a tricky balance to walk. If it's not the plumber who's coming in with their own tools to fix the toilet in your house and then leaving, that's sort of the quintessential independent contractor. There are a lot of other variations. And so those are, again, things to get buttoned up on the front end.
All right. Awesome, Jessi. Well, this is some really good information. Thank you. And any final thoughts?
I think we've pretty much covered it.
Okay. And how do you folks get in touch with you if they want to hire someone like you?
Sure. So I think I mentioned in the beginning, Brooks Pierce has 3 offices, Greensboro, Raleigh, and Wilmington. I'm based in the Raleigh office. You can find my contact information and for the other attorneys at my firm at brookspierce.com.
Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.
Thanks. Stop.